Mainstream Metaphysics with your host, Nick Newmont.
Hi there, I'm Nick Newmont. Welcome to Mainstream Metaphysics. This is Tuesday, January 14th, and as you can see, I'm sitting here coming from Southern California. I'm representing Los Angeles tonight, and we need to be represented. Last week, when Michelle Guzzi and I did the show, we had no idea as to how much destruction was being done by the fires at that point. To find out later when I went home, just what was going on and what was going to ensue, as the days went on. And here we sit 1 week later, looking behind us. There is a wake of destruction, most of which, and this is just my humble opinion, was unnecessary, that much of this could have been prevented. And my heart goes out to people that have suffered in any way, shape, or form. I have clients that lost homes, and just being with them as I can to support them. And of course, if you watching know someone that has suffered a loss, you feel their pain. And as I'm representing LA tonight, this is the end of this month will be 40 years that I've lived in Los Angeles, and I consider myself now an Angelino, and I'm proud of that. And I have to tell you, we will rebuild. Where I originally come from, I would call that a land of predictability, and in the way my life has changed and prospered, Los Angeles is a city of possibility and probability. And if I didn't live here, my life wouldn't look like the way it is. What I do for a living, the wonderful family that I have, I'm very proud to be here. And Los Angeles is going to rise up again. It will be better than ever. There's a lot that has to be done on so many levels, and it's going to take weeks and months and years to get certain things back in shape. But, for people that are not from this area, we're not a bunch of beach-going surfers that take things in a casual way. In Los Angeles, we work our butts off, and we're proud of that. And, I'm here and to support. Audrey, did her show last night. We have, where we've made contributions for people that put out requests for help. And again, if you know anyone that needs help, see how you can be of help. Tonight's show is about, healthy mind, healthy body, and how to relax the mind and body. And, just in the way I laid out the January schedule to be Mental Health Month, I think that tonight's show will truly, truly support that. A concept of taking care of yourself the best way you can, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We are here for you. And as I said briefly, appearing on Audrey's show last night, maybe a person's life can end, but you can't kill the human spirit. It is eternal. And what we are made of, we rise up. We are resilient. And thank you to the outpouring of people that have checked in on me that are from other parts of the country. In fact, believe it or not, other parts of the world. I really appreciate people reaching out. And I must say, we're very, very lucky. My family, our place of business, there was a few moments where we weren't quite sure, but we've been okay. Everything is fine. Found out after the fact, our good friend Michelle that was here last week, she actually told me that where she lives, in part of the San Fernando Valley, they actually arrested someone that was a potential arsonist. So these people out there that do these heinous things, they will be brought to justice. in so many ways, in so many fashions. Again, this just didn't need to happen. And these individuals will be dealt with. Anyway, that's my rant. I do want to bring in my wonderful guest, Justin Formanek. I'm making sure Ed was back there before I introduced you.
No, I get it.
Thank you. Justin is a resident massage therapist and another healer at the Newmont Center. And how long have you been with us now? Jeez.
I want to say we're coming up to 3 years.
Oh my God.
2 to 3 years, because I do remember 2022 for sure is when I definitely remember meeting you guys. So yeah, 3 years, coming up on 3 years now.
Wow, it's good to have you with us.
Yeah.
And you are the featured speaker in week 2 of the Healthy Mind, Healthy Body series.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that begins on Monday, January 27th, whatever that Monday is, February 4th. What is that date? And that focuses on structure of the body.
Yes. So that'll be a fun class. I'm
Good,
excited.
yeah. We're glad you're part of that. Now, as we sit here today, okay, and there are things that have happened to people that in time they're going to come out of the shock and really reality is going to hit them in a different way.
Yes, it's already hitting actually a lot of my own clients. I've had at least 3 or 4 that were having to evacuate. I don't know what happened to their homes. I check in on them. I try and make sure that I can be present for them. And it's just a really it's not an easy time. We have this level of uncertainty for even those that aren't necessarily in the path of the fire, because if you are from California, you're from LA, you understand that there's a level of community that isn't necessarily recognized in movies or other places. Everyone kind of knows everyone, and they know someone that does know someone.
Right.
And so one of the things is that it's a lot of people are being impacted. Friends are being impacted. Families are being impacted. So this is where I've had to really do my best to keep myself grounded while I'm still reaching out to everyone that is in my Rolodex, being like, hey, I know that you're in this area. Are you doing okay? What's going on? And it's really, for me, it's an interesting line I'm walking, because I'm used to reaching out to them to be like, hey, are you ready for your next massage? And now it's, hey, are you guys okay? Like, what is going on? What can I do to be there for you and be present for you? So that's what I'm experiencing right now.
And even though this is the moment that we're experiencing, maybe businesses might have a little bit of a lull depending on the kind of business. But in our work, I would say get ready for the onslaught.
I'm expecting that, well, last week, and even the holidays too that we're just coming out of, that's usually the slow season for massage therapists. A lot of our regulars tend to go on vacations with their families and things like that. My energy clients, they're like, okay, I'm going to just kind of reposition into the new year. And now I was ready to kind of get the ball rolling, get it started, so that way the first week my intention was like, all right, we're going to get a bunch of bookings. And then I remember hearing the winds on Monday, Tuesday, and my first thought was, okay, this is going to definitely slow some things down. And lo and behold, when I heard about the first fire before it even got crazy, and I knew how bad the winds were, I immediately just was like, hey, I'm canceling. If you want to cancel, you can let me know. Whatever comes up, tell me. And I just I let all of my clients kind of focus on what's going on in their life. And then I'm now I spent the entire week sharing different funds, places for outreach and things of that sort. And this week I started slowly kind of trickling back into my advertisements and being ready to take bookings and be like, hey, I am available. And then I'm still making sure to put funds and trying to donate and other organizations to help with that going on.
Yeah, and I think that, in what all of us do at the center, It's like letting people know that we are here
Yeah.
for them.
Exactly.
Whatever type of service we provide. In a time like this, whether it's mental or physical, in a time like this, people are automatically going into fight flight.
Yes, this is definitely going to be bringing a lot of people into that, and they're going to be stuck in that fight or flight for weeks, months, even years. There is this unique occurrence that you're already in your fight or flight the moment you wake up. You're generally jostled awake to an alarm. You go to work, you're going from A to B, so you're immediately thinking, okay, I have to do that. You're in your fight or flight when you're in a car. You're constantly looking at your surroundings. You're in that moment. So that's where my job or any type of self-care becomes so important. It doesn't matter whether or not you're doing yoga, whether or not you're doing facials, massage, Reiki, meditation, or going to your weekly or monthly or however often you see therapy session or guidance session. And the reason why that's so important to us right now is because that is usually about an hour or more of uninterrupted time for you, uninterrupted time to be present, and uninterrupted time to disconnect from everything going on outside of the world.
When clients have energy work with me, well, hypnosis is a whole different thing too. But a lot of times people will say, well, I put my phone on silent. And I'll tell them, no, let's turn it off or take it out of the room. And their initial reaction is that I'm going to be bothered. And it's like, no, it's not about me. I don't want you to be aware that there's this external thing that may have to be dealt with. I want you to just chill out and disappear for 90 minutes.
Yes. And I understand that. And I definitely, I wish I could have my clients do that. They're unfortunately a little too busy for their family. They have kids. They're always, and so the best I can get is getting their phone on silent. And even then, they have, like, I've had a few occurrences where they're usually really good. I've worked on them for a while, and this happened about a year ago. But their phone got called so much that their do not disturb got put back on. So someone was calling them for an emergency, and this is never. And then they were like, "Are we able to postpone this?" And I, unfortunately, there's not much I can do in that session because it's I can still be present, I can still create the space for them, but at that point, it's again, that's where it's like, okay, well, this is why we have these sessions or these moments, this hour of disconnect, because if you don't do that, when are you going to?
Right.
And even at the end of the day, that's super important. I can't remember where I keep reading it because it's a constant thing you'll find of you never want to have to be in front of your TV, in front of your phone, in front of electronics. I think it's an hour before bed, so that way you're able to properly disconnect and unwind from all of that blue light and all of that harsh brainwaves being activated from watching all the screens.
Well, 30 minutes before we go to sleep, that's when the brain cycles down into theta, where the mind is more open to change. And in that time, there's a certain kind of success journal that we offer that people can do. So if you're going to do some kind of activity before you go to sleep, it should be meditative or some kind of more of a spiritual kind of music.
I got you.
Because any kind of input, like for instance, the worst horror movie that was ever made is called the 11 o'clock news.
That's pretty accurate, actually. I've never seen a late night news show showing and been like, that made me feel warm and fuzzy.
So look, and that's why they know in programming that whether you watch any local 10 o'clock news, what follows that is some kind of syndicated sitcoms.
Yes.
Okay. Or if you watch the 11 o'clock news, it's followed by Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon.
Some lightheartedness and brevity.
So you don't go to bed,
doom and gloom.
And the funny thing is, and that's in my notes, coming from Fight Flight, we are very hyper suggestible to external input.
Yes.
All right. The news emphasizes the current problem, and which they need to tell the story, but they but they predict negative outcomes.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because I obviously grew up in a very different generation than you, only by one generation.
What are you saying here, Justin?
But I grew up in the generation of video games, 100%. And there is a commentary done by a video game, and I can't think of the name, but one of the it was an indie developed game. It wasn't a big fancy game. It wasn't expensive, but it was a very simple game in its premise where it was making social commentary on everything going on in the world. And one of the biggest points is in it, you were taking photo, like you took a little screenshot of what's going on in the screen. That's like, you were like, okay, take a photo, and you were taking photos of different things. And at a certain point, it didn't matter if what you were taking a photo of wasn't violent, when it would show up to be like the next news broadcast, it said, this is too peaceful, this is too boring, this doesn't get views. And the social commentary it brought on about it made you think like, and when you look back at most news organizations, it's a level of harshness and desensitization to all of that roughness going on. And so again, as you mentioned, for hypersuggestibility, we're constantly being fed that through the news. And so it's important to get a break. It's important to disconnect from it and allow your brain time to release, decompress, and de-stress from all of that.
And part of that is what they're doing is creating a new norm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. There is. And that's, again, where it's really important for us to take a moment and to honestly step up and be a little bit more, I wouldn't say more vocal, but more present for our clients and more present for others, because I just got there's this level of expectation for anything you do in your day-to-day. Right. And again, it's that hypersuggestibility. When you're working, you're expected to do something for something else. When you're even dating, there's this level of expectation after the third date, after the first, there's always this level of expectation. Right. And I just had one of the sweetest reviews I have ever gotten from one of my clients. And one of the things she said was, I was one of the few people in her entire life that worked on her, was patient with her without expecting anything. And in all honesty, I've been like, I would just be there being like, hey, are you available this week? If you're not, I understand. I'm just trying to be able to help you go through what's going on in your life. Right. And so that's where it's so important for me and what I do, and also for you and what you do, where we go in for a client and we go in with the intention of doing the most we can to create that space, doing the most we can to help them heal, again, to help them disconnect, again, to help them leave that everything is literally on fire, but when they're in our space, that's not important right now. What is important is their conscious well-being and taking the moment to leave that fight or flight. Right. And that's what I think is really important, and a message that tends to even get lost in people in my field. Because we get so focused on, I need the money, I need to pay my bills, I need to do this. And then they get really, or they're like, oh, well, I've already got everything I need, and I'm just going to do the same thing. And they get into a cookie cutter. Mm-hmm, and then I hear about it because they're like, I went to this massage and they've been my massage therapist for so long. But then they didn't listen when I just injured myself, and they did the same thing they do every time. And I've told them, and I was like, okay, come see me. I'm not going to charge you an arm and a leg for this. We're just going to be able to, again, fix what's going on. You're going to have an hour or an hour and a half. Very rarely, but I do have a few 2-hour clients where I'm like, wow. It's to be in someone's space for 2 hours, I have to know you. I'm sorry. I do have to know you to an extent, because that is usually mostly in silence, where we are just in silence in each other's space. So there has to be a level of understanding but again, to create that is something that I do not take lightly, and I've only continuously tried to grow more conscious of what I'm doing with my clients and how I can help them. And especially right now, that's super important. And and as you said, hypersuggestibility and everything, all the external factors. Even in massage, there's a level of it where I'm having you do breath work. I'm having you consciously try to change your thought patterns of like, all right, we're going to breathe out and exhale all of that tension. We're going to exhale all of those negative thoughts, exhale things that no longer serve us. Those are all, again, a level of suggestion that we're doing.
When I'm putting people into hypnosis, one of the things I say when we start the breathing process is every inhale is a breath of fresh air. Every exhale is a sigh of relief.
Yeah, I love that. I usually do. For me, I'm a little different about my approach. I have them visualize breathing in gratitude and blessings, because and it's also because I've met a lot of people my clients are all along in higher and different levels of consciousness. Some are
Surely.
stuck in that fight or flight and that negative mindset, and they're great people and they're warm energy, but just their mindset leaves them trapped. And others are breaking free and they have their moments, and so I just do it where it just helps them reprogram that of like, okay, wait, I can be blessed. I can have these moments of thankfulness and gratitude and everything else like that. And so it's just it all ties in. So I understand what you're talking about for a breath of fresh air.
Right. And there's a lot more that I do too.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it comes to the going into a hypersuggestible state, and our devices create post-hypnotic suggestions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So, like, for instance, people have different kinds of alerts. And when those alerts go off, people are set off.
Yes.
So now I realize there's certain kinds of apps that's what the sound that app makes. But one thing I want to suggest to people that are viewing is that you can change the sounds that come in, whether you're getting email or text, or sometimes you have personalized ringtones for different situations. One thing that I would say is, so you're not stuck in your homeostasis and so automatically suggestible to what's in there, is change the sounds.
Oh yeah,
that you have associated with certain things that come through.
I have a few clients that like I know some of their ringtones because when I'm leaving I can hear it, and I'll hear one. I'm like, "Is that your daughter?" They're like, "How'd you know?" And I'm like, "It's always the same song.
Right.
Everyone else is a different song." And that's funny. I think it's funny because I actually, because of my work, my phone is very rarely ever with the sound on. I will usually miss a phone call the first time over because it does not. My phone has forever on silent, not do not disturb. The sound is just never on.
Right.
And that's just because, again, like if I need it for emergencies because of my dad and my brother.
Surely.
But for me, it's when I'm in a session and everything, my phone is not on my phone is on the counter, face down, silent. That is it. And so I don't want it to be I don't want it to be doing anything. So when I'm working on clients, or in my day to day, I usually have to like set a reminder of being like, okay, in the morning, I'll check my notifications. In the middle of the day, I'll check my notifications. And then usually after dinner, I'll take about 20, 30 minutes to go through my notifications. So if it's a busy day, I do not know what's going on for anything except for I've got these clients. And then I'm like, okay, hold on.
In the show ER, which goes back about 15 years ago, it was a doctor show on NBC. There was the head surgeon in the emergency room, the character, not the actor, the character. Boy, he was an SOB, okay? Just not nice. And one of the veteran doctors was expecting some kind of phone call.
Yeah.
And he was kind of nervous, and the head of the department, he just said very like tersely, "Good news can wait, bad news never goes away." It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's harsh.
That is a harsh view of it too.
Right?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And then, when it comes to watching the news, I know that in situations where there's some kind of emergency, that people have a tendency to watch the regular news for updates and things like that. But don't become glued to it.
Yeah,
okay?
it's not healthy for you to digest all of that all the time. And it's, again, like everything is, you have to be able to moderate a certain, you have to moderate yourself in that sense. And it's the same for what I refer to as doom scrolling. When you have nothing better to do and you're just going through video after video because it's designed to be quick, short clips
Right.
that are designed to get you hooked. And it's the same that we see for everything now. It's everything is doing it. When you compare television from 20 years ago to today, or even 10 years ago to today, the cartoons that I watched to the ones that I see nowadays, vastly different in regards to their pacing and in regards to the sheer level of color output. When I see newer cartoons, it is bright flashing colors,
Right.
constantly bombarding me, and back in the day, it was a little bit more muted with everything.
So, to that point, there's a word that is part of the hypnotic world, and television has a somniferous effect.
Somniferous.
Okay? So the word som has to do with sleep.
Okay.
Okay? And so, like when people watch TV over an extended period of time, they get sleepy. Okay?
Yes.
And so they're going into a form of externally induced hypnosis that's not productive.
Yes. Okay. That's so fascinating. I mean, it makes sense, especially as like someone that when I was in my early 20s, I'd be glued to the television all the time. So I was definitely guilty of being falling for it. It's interesting though, because it's everything we're getting is I feel like, especially with our phones, there's a level of subliminal messaging or some form of reconditioning to be like, hey, you're going to need to do this. You're going to be anxious if you do not hear about this in the next X amount of hours. I know you're expecting something and you're given a 4-hour window, but you're expecting it at the beginning of that window, and then when you get it near the end, you're a mess because you're like, wait, where is it coming? Did I get it? Did I not?
Exactly.
What's going on? And so it's just important to take a moment and breathe and go out and disconnect. Genuinely disconnect. I do not care what it is you're disconnecting with. Go to the beach. Leave your phone in the car, or leave it with all your stuff, and then go in the water. Like, just get out of there. Get out of that cycle and do something for yourself. Be active and move around.
Like, for instance, today, from this morning, this morning's news kept saying that the winds would be a certain speed.
Yeah, they were expecting 80 miles an hour winds again, I think.
No, more like 50 to 60.
50 to 60, okay.
And that didn't happen.
No, it wasn't.
Happen.
It was a little rough last night in Ventura, Oxnard. Nothing crazy. It didn't feel like the first week did, for sure. But there was a little, like, I could feel a little push, but it wasn't. I was expecting it to be like that the entire time. That's what it felt like. Like, that's what it felt like the news forecast was. But it had calmed down a lot faster than I expected. Because I was expecting it to be really aggressive for a couple days, is how they made it seem.
Well, myself and a number of our constituents, we did some energetic work on the weather. So,
very thankful for all of that.
Very
thankful.
And it's what my guides told me to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think it had a good effect.
Yes.
But there was a number of people I contacted and said, this is what we're being told to do.
Yeah.
So let's do that.
I get that. Yeah.
You know, when it comes to events like this, catastrophes, and look, it doesn't matter where you live. If you look back east, I mean, there's snow and ice and stuff like that, storms. You know, the southeast has hurricanes.
Well, yeah, they're still recovering from all of that going on.
Yeah, exactly. One of the mottos that I have is, well, prepare for the worst, but expect the best. Mm-hmm. So if you are prepared, you've got things set aside that you can grab, then you go.
Yeah.
You know, but in your heart of hearts, expect the best.
Yes.
From this in anything that we do.
Yeah, and I think we forget that last part. Because I was told in my early 20s, Justin, you're so pessimistic. I'm like, well, I'm expecting the worst. They're like, but what if the best happens? I'm like, that couldn't happen. No way. And now I'm like, no, it can work. It'll work. We'll make it work. They're like, what do you mean? This is a janky situation, and you just completely went off the rails on how you found a solution. I'm like, but we came out on top, and we're doing great.
See?
So I'm very much like my mindset, the shift in that, and it's again that last half of expect the best. I always I have a level of skepticism of people because I've seen the worst in the news and all that stuff, but I I get made fun of for it, but they're like, how can you just trust them? I'm like, it's not that I don't trust them, but I'm giving them the opportunity to prove that, like, they're honoring what they're saying. I want them to show that, like, yeah, there's a lot of things that are rough and tough in the world that you hear about, but, like, that one-on-one conversation, that their life, like, they stepped up and they changed their patterns, they moved forward with love, they actually shifted that mindset to be like, I want to be a better person or help heal others, and they proved that with their actions. That's amazing. So that little bit of expecting the best is genuinely lost, I feel like, in translation, and one that could be it's helpful to remember.
Sure. Look, I've said a number of times on the show, as we go forward into May and June, there's a planetary alignment that's going to reveal a lot. A lot is going to come to the surface. Unfortunately, events like this, and they truly are unfortunate. For some, it can be a wake-up call.
Yes.
And I think you don't have to be psychic to be able to say that these events are going to lead to investigations and revelations, there are certain people that are going to find themselves in trouble for decisions that they've made, and by saying they're in trouble, I'm really downplaying what the outcome could be.
No, there was a sense, a lot of people feel like there was a lack of response and urgency for what happened. And I won't really talk too much about it because I haven't done enough research on that front of things. But one of the big things I can tell is it just breaks my heart that it had to occur like this. That it had to raise to this level of division, to this level of frustration, and this level of, honestly, animosity. And that's, again, where we come into play of, like, we are... I have always viewed it as, I've never viewed it as I want to change the world by the masses. I'd rather change it by one life at a time. One interaction of taking the moment and being present in that and helping just the animosity that seems to be constantly building in the climate and today.
Well, there is an undercurrent in life that where things are changing, and there's a very old saying that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And actually, Merlin told me some years ago, he said that's actually wrong. It's the reverse. The more people believe that things are staying the same, the more they're changing. They just don't see it or acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And so we are in with Pluto now in Aquarius for the next 20 years. I mean, these are very strong transformational changes that we're going through. Yeah. And they are changes in humanity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the big things that, like, I've already noticed is just in regards to people being more conscious because of what Aquarius represents generally as a constellation. And so I've never made fun of Aquarius as a constellation, but I've always viewed it as an intriguing one because it's not easily understood. To people that are just entering the field of astrology, Aquarius is always the one that escapes their grasp. It is.
Well, it's the most non-traditional. In fact, in astrology, I'm a Libra, but I'm an Aquarius rising. So you're getting into unique and different and independent and eclectic.
Yes.
And Aquarius doesn't break the rules. They change the rules.
Yes.
Okay? And Aquarians are going to do things the way they're going to do them. In fact, there is a side to some Aquarians where you'd say, well, why did you do that? And they go, I don't know, it just did.
Yeah, that's my best friend. That's actually one of my closest friends is an Aquarius. And so we joke because people will see us interact and like, how do you two get along? Because you're both very different. I'm like, we don't understand it either, but like we're siblings at this point. There's no really understanding of how it works, but we look at each other being like, yeah, that's just what happens.
Well, this Pluto in Aquarius is a transformation of humanity.
Yes.
And by the way, the concept of Aquarius does have a lot to do with the masses and humanitarianism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uranus Aquarius rules the 11th house of astrology, which is, the love we receive, groups, clubs, organizations. It's also called the house of hopes, dreams, and wishes. So it's a time to think big.
Yeah.
As we sit going forward, there's so much more that's going to spill out. Okay, and it's going to be a matter of how people deal with what their plight is at the moment that were directly affected. There are people that are affected secondarily, and then in a tertiary way.
Yeah.
Now, in the work that you do, we all know that people store feelings and emotions in their body.
Yes.
So let's say you get a lot of people coming now that have really been affected. What part of the body are they storing?
There's going to be a few points, I feel like. It really depends on how the impact, if it is a direct impact on them, then we start to see this weight of the world is collapsing on them. So it'll be a lot of shoulders. For those that are being impacted financially and in their sense of security, it generally will be more right-sided and more masculine in that sign. And for those that are doubting a lot in their ability, I'm most likely going to see a lot more that it'll appear as though it's going to be back pain. They'll be like, oh, my shoulders are super tight. And in reality, it's their chest and their lumbar. And that's just because of the support that is required, as well as this idea of security and stability they'll feel the pull and the tension coming on here, but it's because unconsciously they're holding it in here and they're trying to shield themselves from all this negative emotions or this doubt in themselves or this complete questioning of their ability to sustain or support them and their family.
Sure.
For those that are impacted because they lost all of their and it's tragic, but like for those that have lost their homes and for those that have lost their family memories and all those things that cannot be replaced by money, the things that you can't just say, hey, I'm going to build it like new, like it used to be, because there is a level of memory. There's a level of there's a spiritual memory that you hold on to a lot of these items. So that's going to be heavily on the left side. Usually it's going to be more rooted it's going to be more in their stomach and in their hips, but it's going to be interesting to see moving forward because it also just depends, like that's going to be the basis, but how they interpret it and how they're holding it themselves and how it's directly impacting them or indirectly impacting them will start to show in different areas like their hands and their arms or in their feet because of just not feeling grounded and not feeling stable. So they're slipping, it feels like they're falling. And so it'll be it's going to be a heartbreaking time for that, but that's again where we have to be more present and more conscious.
Right. It's amazing when what people attach to as we call intrinsic values.
Yes.
Where there is an emotional attachment or something they feel is essential or necessary. I remember that the house that we lived in Agora Hills, and we lived there for 12 years roughly, and then had downsized, moved to another place, and at one point, weeks, months, I guess, after we moved, Audrey and my one daughter drove to that street, and the people that bought the house tore the tree out of the front yard and tore a lot of these beautiful rose bushes out, and they kind of like homogenized the house. And Audrey and that daughter, they just cried.
Yeah.
It's like
I've got a similar situation of a house that I lived in from I was, I believe, 6 to 13. My dad built a pool. He built a treehouse for me. I was not nearly as appreciative of that as I should have been, and I definitely hold a little bit of sadness that I wasn't able to appreciate it now as an adult.
Wouldn't it be cool now as
I would
adults
love to have a treehouse. Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. Especially one that like was separate enough so like I could have the house completely shut off and there'd just be like a little light in the treehouse where I could look up at the stars. That'd be amazing.
Right.
It would just be so much fun to just it feeds my inner child. But the house that we had, they drained the pool, and we had this old like ship steering wheel, and it was put onto our fence, like we put it into the fence and everything, and they got rid of it. And I remember I was like, you don't appreciate it. And I was a bit heartbroken over it because I was looking back and I was like, I really want to go into a pool.
It was
But for me, it was I very much remember feeling like I had to grieve it, and
Definitely.
that's something that again we're going to be seeing a lot of is grief of what their life was before the fire impacted them, before it touched their life.
Along that, I'm sure Audrey is watching, and it's something that happened. I was working on this client and doing the energy work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the amount of electricity that's in the body
Oh, yeah.
is amazing. And so I was in the solar plexus chakra,
Yeah.
which is your conscious mind, not just your stomach. And there's a way that I can access the DNA helix and go in there and work on that. And as I'm working on him, I said, what happened to you around 12 years old?
Yeah.
And in there, and I'm basically on an electric coil
Yeah.
on the helix. And he said, oh, yeah. He said, that's when we moved from the big house. We had a farm. We had to move to an apartment. And then all of a sudden he goes, oh, and then because we had to get rid of the dog because we moved to an apartment. And he let go of some emotion. And I felt like I had been tased
Yeah.
on that electromagnetic release. I
Yeah.
mean, it was like putting your finger in a socket,
Yeah.
how it holds you there. So there's a lot of emotion
Oh, yeah.
that's really and truly, stored in the body. So, for people that are going to come to you, in
Yes.
these days and weeks and months ahead that have got all this stored up in them, when it comes to, and you're not the stereotypical massage therapist. You're not.
Not any. No,
You're not.
I really am not.
No, you're
No.
you're much more than that. So, for people that are watching that are starting to feel,
Yeah.
and by the way, one other thing I was going to say, when people are in fight flight, they're in an adrenaline rush.
Yes.
Okay. At some point, the adrenaline's going to come down.
Yes.
Okay. So, what are you going to do for those people?
For that endorphin collapse, it's so intriguing that you mentioned that. It's something that a lot of people don't understand how to grasp or to come out of in a calm manner. And it's not. It's going to be, for some, it'll be like a bumpy ride. It'll be a little bumpy, and it'll be like they're riding a bike on a very poorly paved road, and then it'll smooth itself out over time. For others, it's going to be jarring. For others, it's going to be aggressive, and it's going to be honestly terrifying. Because especially depending on how much of a fight or flight they were stuck in, how used to being trapped in this negative cycle, or how used to being trapped in just a cycle that has been draining them for years in such a micro aggressive way that they never took it into consideration. And so that's where I see the tears. That's where I see the crying. I see laughing uncontrollably. That's where I see they just will sleep for 12 hours afterward. And that's where it becomes for me after client care, where I am checking in on them, making sure they're drinking water, even if I have to reach out to them a couple times over a week, being like, hey, let's do a check-in if we need to do a phone call, if we need to do something, and just so that way they're able to find a way to verbalize the emotions that are coming to the surface and being released after years of being pent up, so be it. If that's the process of them grieving after, again, losing their entire livelihood or losing their stability of everything they ever knew, because some people grew up out here. They were born out here. All they've known was the safety and security that Malibu had, the community of the Palisades, like the communities that were horribly impacted by this. And so for that to be ripped away from them, for my parents, for them to be having this question of like, are my kids going to be able to be impacted? Like, am I able to make this safe and easy for them and things like that? That's again where once they leave that fight or flight, and once that endorphin rush slows down, it's really important to be extra mindful, extra present, and just be able to read them and read where they're going, and make sure that I'm able to make sure they don't fall too far off.
Sure. And one other thing that I want to touch on is that Of course, people, even homeowners, are not allowed back in their neighborhoods yet.
No.
But one thing I want to caution on, because there are curious people out there, there is a tertiary level of shock with this, and that will be if an individual drives down PCH and sees along the coast whether homes or restaurants that are now gone that were very familiar to them. And I really recommend not going and looking at that right now, because the energy on this right now is so fresh, and that can be mentally, emotionally debilitating.
It can
to go, because it's too fresh right now.
And the other thing is, and this might seem I don't know how people will view this, but if you are not used to loss, I highly recommend to avoid doing that, especially if you're not used to loss. If you're used to loss and you're used to these a harsh change in your lifestyle, or you've had to rebuild before, I still don't recommend it. I don't recommend it for anyone, but there are, for them, they do need to make that drive, not anytime soon, but eventually, just to help come to terms with how devastating, and as long as they're able to be guided in a healthy manner to visualize it as to be grateful for things, or to push themselves out from being stuck there, and to help them move forward with it.
Right.
There is a level of that level of harshness, not harshness, but guidance of going through that process. Right. But right now, I definitely agree that if you're not necessarily need to take that drive, do not take it. It's not. Right. It's not for the faint of heart right now, and it's not for anyone that has never experienced loss like this.
It's one thing when people watch the news and they see it. There are these human interest stories that come, but there isn't a whole lot of difference in what your eyes see between seeing burned out locations versus watching a movie where that's fictional.
I was going to say there's a level of suspension of disbelief that occurs because you're so used to looking at your phone. Your phone has an unconscious suspension of disbelief, because this is what you watch this is what you watch everything on. Your YouTube video, your skits, your Netflix movies, all of it. So yes, you see it and you can feel it to an extent, but if you go, it becomes real. It becomes, and it's not just visual, it's felt in every single sense of the body, and not just the physical sense. It is felt in an emotional sense. It is felt through the air. It is felt through your skin. Like everything, every part of your body will feel this, not just, I can see it and it breaks my heart. It's going to be, you're going to smell it. You're going to feel like you're going to feel the ash on you. It's not going to be healthy.
Right.
It's just not.
Yeah. Why subject yourself to something that you don't need to subject yourself to?
Exactly.
Because everybody's got a different level of what they're able to cope with. For me as a hypnotherapist, the way I be helping people is, anxiety coping mechanisms and PTSD. That's where if you're struggling with, the mental part of it, that's where I come into play, and our Audrey, our good friend Michelle Guzzi, and even Dr. Palmer at our offices. He's not a hypnotherapist, but he's got a way about him.
Yeah.
And so people are going to have to learn to cope. I said across the board at the beginning of the show, there is a resiliency to the city of Los Angeles. Oh, yeah. We've been through earthquakes. We've been through all kinds of things, and we keep coming back.
Los Angeles doesn't get a lot of respect outside of LA, in my opinion. And I admit it. Like I have my moments where I'm angry at LA. I don't like it, but you cannot deny that as a community and how quickly the city as a whole stood up and took charge of everyone I knew. Everyone. It did not matter what their financial standings were. It did not matter where they were in life. It did not matter who they were. every single person I knew, from all the way from the valley, from West Hills, coming all the way down to Laguna and Orange County, they all were like, our doors are open for those impacted. Restaurants immediately, if you're impacted, come by. Everyone was sharing immediately, all of the shelters, all of the and even the people that like travel to LA, they don't live here. They all stood up and were like, hey, if you need, come visit us, like come out and like we'll figure something out. We will make this happen and we will come out of this on top. We will survive this. And that's something that I find beautiful of that city, of the City of Angels. Like it is truly, it is remarkable on its of her resilience and her ability to bring people together in that sense.
You know, it was interesting. Of course, you know, we know that the Los Angeles Rams played last night, but they had to move the game to Arizona.
Yes.
And they were saying at the beginning of the show that the owner of the Arizona Cardinals sent 2 big planes to L.A. to get the players and all the people that work for the team, and even some people's pets, and just sent his planes to come and get them, and opened up that stadium, you know, so those teams could play over there. I mean, there's different levels of magnitude of generosity.
I mean,
and altruism.
We're seeing it all across the board. Everywhere came together to help LA. Everyone that, I mean, you saw it for the Mexican firefighters. You saw it for like just everywhere. And it warms my heart to see it. And like our own McGuire, he's doing charity, helping out for those impacted in Zuma, I believe. And I'm going to try and do it sometime this week, where they do it in the morning to do just free services, massage and body work for the firefighters as relief work to help them keep.
Nice.
And so I'm going to try and give to that as well.
Wow, wonderful. Good for you.
Yeah, I was very touched, and so I set some time aside in my morning so I can try and stop by and you know, do what I can for the community.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I have a few friends and I have a few friends with family that are firefighters, and I've met a few, and they're just some of the sweetest people I've met. They really are. They love so deeply, and they give so just with their whole chest. And
well, those, you know, when we go back to last weekend, I think it was from Thursday night. I mean, some of those firefighters, especially when they were in the Manville Canyon area, they were there for 2 days.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And some of them have they set up shop down at Zuma, and they're just there rotating in and out. They'll be there the entire day for 1 to 2 days and rotate in. They'll go home. They'll sleep they'll sleep for 1 day and they go right back. Then when I was at Starbucks pre-massage, we had a few firefighters, and I remember it was the Simi Valley fire, and I was talking with one of them, and I was like, "So what did you do for that?" He's like, "Oh, I had 3 days on, and that's just because the way I scheduled it. I slept for 2 days, and I went right back to fighting it." And I was like, "That's intense." And he's like, "It's what's demanded." And I feel like, and saying that now, it's similar to just where I feel like I don't think I could ever stop doing what I do, because of the impact it has on all of my clients' lives, and how I'm able to be present for them and help them, and you know. So yeah, I'm very thankful for what I get to do, and I'm thankful that we weren't too negatively impacted, and that I still have the means to be able to give back.
Sure, and for our center was without power for about 4 days, but believe it or not, because of the way the windows are, during the day I was still able to see people, you know, still help people.
Yeah. You have enough candles to light it up, though.
Yes, we do have candles. We are a candle manufacturer.
Such beautiful candles, too.
Thank you. Yeah, we're fortunate.
Yes.
Very fortunate. Yeah, I mean, there's always something to be grateful for.
Yes.
You know, across the board.
Yeah.
And even people that you see on the news that have suffered losses, you can tell how much gratitude they have. And
There was a really heartwarming one I saw, actually, of a man who was worried for his dog, and his dog was fine, and they got reconnected like 3 days later.
right.
He was so worried, and the moment he'd hear the dog barking in where his house was, he just started shaking as he was able to get to his dog, and it was like that warmed my heart. That was like I was like, this is why I love this is why I love this area, and everyone that just loves so passionately and gives their all and just pursues their dreams here.
Well, one thing that's been said for a long time, LA is a big city, but it's a small town.
Yes. Oh, I've truly understood that in the last few years as I got to know people from all different parts of LA, because they'll tell me stories of they're like growing up in the different cities, and they're like, oh yeah, this place has been there for 30, 40 years. Same for Camarillo, we've got places, and same for out here in Agora and Westlake and everywhere. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
And you just never know who knows whom.
No, you really don't. And it's so fascinating where I'll find people that know other colleagues of mine, and they're like, oh, yeah, I know you know so-and-so. I'm like, how did you know that?
Right.
What have you heard about me?
All right. Yeah. That's why, be careful what you say.
always move with kindness.
When you were talking about earlier about, we were talking about adrenaline
Yes.
rush,
Oh.
and the words you were using, the week that you speak at our series, that does encompass the root chakra, the adrenals, and all that.
That'll be good.
So remember what you were saying,
Yeah.
because that's some language that has never been used in the past 3-4 times that we've presented that series.
It's not the language comes more from my workout for my health and wellness of losing 70 pounds and working with a personal trainer, but understanding that going from a high like that to a baseline. I'm not saying normal. It's not normal to go from that level of adrenaline,
Right.
that high, to just flatlining it is harsh. There is no gentleness to it, and so it is an endorphin rush. It would be like if you're running and you get that
Right.
runner's high and you're in that endorphin rush and then you calm down. There's a reason why you do a cool down walk. There's a reason why you need to take time to recover from it, and that's because when you go from all those chemicals shooting in your brain to not shooting anymore, it's going to impact you, and usually negatively.
Sure.
There's a reason why. There's a reason why any form of endorphin rush generally tends to lead to a temporary level of depression and anxiety, because you go from that high to just it's gone.
Well, and then you also have, in people that you work on, people that had to evacuate and they had to lift things and grab and go.
Yeah.
And then and at some point they're going to realize,
their body's angry. They
exactly.
are. I have a few that are already their body's angry, and I am expecting quite a few that their bodies will be fighting them. And I'm like, all right, we're just gonna be present and let it go. Just let all of that tension go.
In a couple of minutes we have left, if people would like to get a hold of you for massage, tell them how they can reach you.
So you can. There's a few ways you can email me. You can email me, and that's J. It's my first initial last name, massage@gmail.com. So that's JFORMANEK massage@gmail.com. You're always welcome to call or text me, and I'll get back to you at my soonest convenience, and that is at 805-586-5934. I do have a social media handle, and that's J4U Healing. And so that's where I post a lot of my massage content, and I do plan on incorporating and building that platform soon as well.
Wonderful. And if you would like to reach me or at the Newmont Center for hypnotherapy or healing treatments, 818-865-8770. If you'd like to reach Audrey, it's 818-665-6165. We are here for you. If you need treatments of some kind, we are more than happy to help. Wanted to say next week, and we all need a reason to laugh. My guest next week is Craig Shoemaker, a famous comic, and he does his laughitations. And I'm sure that he and I next week are going to be looking at how to get into the lighter side of this and how to lighten up a bit. Again, from Audrey's show last night, Justin and myself, our hearts go out to you.
Yeah.
We really do. But everybody is going to get through this. We're going to help each other. As I say at the end of every show, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. It's more important than ever at a time like this. Justin, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. We'll have you back more often. And if you are interested in the Healthy Mind, Healthy Body course that Justin is a part of with us at the Newmont Center, just reach out and we can give you more information on what that's going to look like. That's an 8-week series. Anyway, we have to go. Thank you again for watching. And again, all of you, please take care of yourselves. And I will see you next week with Craig Shoemaker right here at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And, hold everybody in the highest in your hearts. Good night, everyone. Thanks for watching.